All right. So if we accept then that there's kind of this, core uh, sort of principle in persuasion, again, backed up by a lot of social science research that suggests that we should try to be kind of modest, in the way that I just described in our persuasive ambitions. Well, how should we go about doing this still? How can we understand what persuasion entails, actually? Well, persuasive messages, persuasive speeches, or what the book calls the persuasive process, broken down into two fundamental sort of components: appeals and arguments. And so appeals, I use sports analogies too much, but it's helpful, I think, in this case. If you appeal, let's say there's a call on the field that, so that's out of bounds, or that the runner was out in baseball, or something like that, right? And you don't agree with it. You think the referee or the umpire got it wrong. You'll appeal, right? You're asking for a review of what just happened because you're hoping that it'll get the outcome, the decision will get changed. You haven't yet actually given them any reason to reconsider their call, potentially, right? You have simply asked for something. You have appealed for them to do something different than they, did just now initially. So that's what the appeal part of it is, right? It's like kind of what you want people to do. It's maybe a call to action, maybe at least kind of the outlining of how it is that you think people should think differently, what you'd like them to accept from, kind of what you're telling them, and so on, right? So the appeal is the kind of where do you want them to get to? The argument is how you actually get them there. And so we're going to kind of talk about these as if they're sort of distinct pieces of persuasion. They obviously influence one another and sort of cross over into one another too, and so you'll see that shortly. Appealing to people often takes the form of, appealing to their needs. That one of the most powerful ways to appeal to somebody to change their mind or to do something is to say, look, you should do this because it's consistent with what you need to do to survive, right? And so maybe you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs before. So at the bottom of the pyramid here, we have the absolute sort of non-negotiable ones that we are first and foremost dedicated to. And you can only get up to these kind of ones here: self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, and whatnot, once you've got these bottom ones met. So if you can, if you can show that something, if you think in your argument, you can show that someone's physiological sort of basic functioning, staying alive, is going to be threatened by something, health problems, for instance, right? Or their safety, then you can, that's a really powerful place to start, of appealing to somebody to agree with your position, to change their mind, because you're saying to them, look, you should, because it's in your interest to do so, right? You really should do it. So keep that in mind as like a powerful source of the kind of appeals that you can make to an audience. In a sort of a little more abstract sense, we also then have something that also many of you may have seen before, appeals through different kinds of rhetorical strategies. Rhetoric kind of is synonymous with persuasion, but this idea specifically is associated with the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who wrote about politics and ethics and ideas about sort of what makes human beings the way they are, and stuff like that. And one of the main things that he's known for is this idea that there's you can break persuasion down into three kinds of appeals. So this doesn't cancel out the hierarchy of needs thing. You can still use this to approach an appeal based on one of those sort of basic needs, but it would be more sort of the way you package it, and the way in which you try to get your audience to come around to your position, in terms of the presentation of the issue. Specifically, whether you try to use emotion, appeals to authority, or reason.